Just after I graduated from college, my mom and dad gave me the graduate gift of my dreams. I remember them handing me the envelope at the graduation ceremony, and at first, I figured it was just a congratulations card from some of the Boricua side of the family who couldn't make it over for the ceremony. But when I actually opened the envelope and looked inside, my jaw almost hit the floor. Inside was a printout of a United Airlines e-ticket to the one place in the world I'd always dreamed of visiting: Brazil. A little backstory: I've always been a huge soccer fan, and my favorite players were always Brazilian. From Pele to Ronaldinho to Neymar Jr., I've idolized Brazilian soccer players for as long as I can remember, and it was always a big pipe dream of mine to visit the country of their birth. It wasn't something I ever specifically asked for, just something I talked about, but my parents must have picked up on it and decided that there was no better graduation gift. And boy, were they right. And I remember pulling them in for this big three-way bear hug as I thanked them over and over again. The flight was scheduled for 2 weeks and I'd be landing in Sao Paulo, so when the time came, I packed up my things and hitched a ride to the airport. The first day was exploring Santa Cecilia, which is one of Sao Paulo's bigger tourist areas, and more importantly, the home of the Museum of Football. But after walking around some of the safer favela areas, I came up with a little plan. I really wanted to try and get involved in one of the five-a-side soccer games that they call futsal. But I didn't just want to roll up like some obnoxious American tourist like, "Hey guys, let me play." So I hatched a plan to go buy a bunch of soccer balls to give out as gifts. That way, I could ingratiate myself into getting to play with them, as well as leaving a little piece of myself behind in my most favorite country in the world. It seems like a solid plan, right? Well, it didn't exactly go down that way. I left the balls behind all right, but parting with them turned out to be the single most terrifying moment of my entire life. So, like I said, hitting up a sporting goods store not far from my hotel, I picked up a huge bag of soccer balls, 10 in total, then headed out into a favela called Santa Amaro. The bus ride took about an hour, and I was getting the whole spectrum of looks from my fellow travelers. Some people smiled or laughed when they saw an obvious tourist carrying such a big bag with them, with one saying to me in perfect English, "They don't sell those in the United States?" Anyway, once I started to recognize places in Santa Amaro, I dragged the bag of balls off the bus and then started heading towards the soccer courts I'd seen the day before. At least, I thought I was heading the direction of those courts. Because after about half an hour of lugging the bag through these little streets and alleyways, I discovered that I'd gotten myself hopelessly lost. I swear to God, some of the favela neighborhoods are like literal mazes, with nothing in the way of tall buildings or landmarks to orient yourself with. But after a while, I saw this group of kids chilling out next to this half-finished building, so I decided to approach them to ask questions. I remember attempting to use my half-baked Portuguese like, onde el futebol, soccer courts? And the kids were all like, "Huh?" And then looking at each other and laughing at the big dumb American trying to speak their language. They must have already noticed the bag of soccer balls I was carrying, because within seconds, they were practically swarming around me, giggling and pointing at the huge bag, obviously thinking I was crazy for carrying so many. That's when it occurred to me that if I just gave them one, they might actually take a liking to me and be much more willing to listen. So that's exactly what I tried to do. I unslung the bag from my shoulder, talking all slow like, "Do you guys want football?" One of the kids points at the bag, then points at myself, and when I nod, he smiles and starts nodding like crazy, so I proceeded to open up the bag before fishing one out to hand it to him. That's when I heard this really distinctive click. I turned, and just to the side of me is one of the kids, pointing a small, snub-nosed revolver right at my head. I don't even think I can properly put the kind of terror I felt into words. Like, there's all those idiot cliches like my blood ran cold or my stomach dropped, but they just don't cover it at all. What I felt was like a full body sensation. True terror grips your entire body, not just your mind. And the one thing I can really remember clearly is how my heart started beating like it wanted to burst out of my chest. The kid said something to me in Portuguese, something that I didn't understand, then shouted it again when I failed to do whatever he was asking. Right then, another one of the kids took the bag of soccer balls from out of my hand, then ran off around a corner and out of sight. It was a robbery, that much was obvious, but once they'd rifled through my pockets and backpack, helping themselves to my money and my phone and whatever else they wanted, I thought they'd just run off after the buddy and leave me alone. But they didn't. As I'm standing there, feeling like I'm about to soil myself, the kid with the gun starts shouting at me in Portuguese again. Only again, I have no idea what he's saying. Just after that, I watch as the kid cocks the hammer of the revolver. His thumb was too small for him to do it with just one, so he had to take the gun in both hands and use both of his little thumbs to do it. I swear, dude, that was one of the most messed up things I'd ever seen. Like, it seemed to drive home how wrong the whole thing was, seeing him struggle with that instrument of death in his tiny tanned hands. I tried my best to remember all the Portuguese I could, but I know some Spanish accidentally came out with it too because I remember saying, "Por favor, no fuerza, hermano, por favor." I'll never forget how hearing me beg for my life just made the kid smile. Like this big, evil-looking grin that lit up his eyes too. Then, as I could actually hear my heart thumping in my chest, the kid closed one eye like he was aiming, pointing the gun right towards my head, and pulled the trigger. But nothing came out but a dull click. There was nothing in the chamber. It was all just a sick prank, and after I flinched and groaned in a way I don't think I've ever heard before, the kids burst out laughing, then ran after their buddy who'd been dragging away the soccer balls. I remember just standing there for a few seconds, totally unable to move, but also somehow shaking harder than I ever had in my life. My armpits and back felt literally drenched with cold sweat, and I remember feeling so dizzy all of a sudden that when I finally could move, I had to just stumble over to the same half-finished wall the kids had been sitting on when I first saw them. After that, I was just numb, half overwhelmed with the desire to just fly back home and half determined not to let it ruin my dream vacation. I'm pleased to say I didn't just pack up and fly home, and filing a police report helped me realize just how unlucky I'd been, as well as how friendly Brazilians can be towards foreigners. It sounds kind of dark, but the thing that reassured me was the fact that one of the cops told me in broken English that the kids would probably catch a lot of flack for what they'd done. Not from their parents or the cops, but from local drug dealers who didn't want any undue police presence in their favela. The guy told me, if they catch, no more football, okay? Implying that the dealers would beat them until they couldn't walk anymore. And in a favela, a kid suddenly showing up at home with 10 soccer balls is going to bring down a lot of attention on them. I didn't want them to be beaten that badly. Like, kids are cruel and dumb no matter where you are in the world, but to subject a total stranger to a mock execution like that, that's not something anyone should be getting away with. I know this story might be putting a lot of people off from going to places like Brazil, and movies like Elite Squad or City of God, both great movies, can definitely give a person the wrong idea of what to expect. But I can assure you, I was just really, really unlucky and dumb for drawing such attention to myself, then doubly dumb for getting myself lost in a strange neighborhood. I'd recommend Brazil to anyone as a vacation destination. Just don't go wandering off into the favelas, because just like certain places in the United States, I don't care to name names, but things can get real crazy, real fast. When I turned 9, my parents finally let me start walking to school. It wasn't far, and even though they were worried, I assured them that I would be fine. I was so excited because my best friend lived next door, and that meant that we could walk to school and back together every day. Things were going great the first few weeks, and we had so much fun laughing and talking all the way to school and back home. There was a liquor store along the way that we would stop at on the way home to get some snacks and candies, but only on Friday. It was our little treat and the thing we looked forward to at the end of the week. One Friday afternoon after school, we began our walk to the liquor store, talking about school as usual. It was just like any other time we went to the store. We would rush in laughing all the way to the candy, pick our favorites, and hop in line to pay. This time, there was a man with a pack of beer, and he looked like he worked in construction or something. He was in line before us with another man, but when he saw us, he let us go first. We thought he was just being nice, so we happily obliged, and as I talked to the cashier, my friend stayed behind me. I could hear the two men behind us speaking in Spanish and laughing, so I turned around to look and see my friend with a nervous look on her face. She grabbed my arm hard after I paid and practically pulled me out of the store. I kept asking her what was wrong, and she said she didn't feel safe and we should just run home. I was confused, and I wanted us to enjoy our candy on the way back like we always did, until she told me what she heard. I don't speak Spanish, but she did, and apparently the two men were talking about me. She said that one of them pointed to me and said, "She looks like the one." They both laughed and agreed, and the one with the beer said, "Let's follow them, and we can grab her around the corner. She's small, won't put up a fight." I froze in fear. We were still in the parking lot of the store and didn't know what to do. We looked around us and saw the two men get into a big work truck. They didn't even glance our way. So I told my friend that they were probably just joking and we were just being paranoid for being so scared. But boy, was I wrong. My friend didn't agree with me and said that they were definitely serious and we should start running. I was hesitant at first until I turned around and the truck was right behind us. I took one look at my friend and we grabbed hands and ran as fast as we could. Our hearts were racing and we didn't dare turn around. We were both crying and I ended up dropping our bag of candy. We turned the corner and there was the truck. My heart dropped. The man in the passenger seat hopped out and began to approach us. He didn't say a single word, but his eyes were locked on me. I've never been that terrified in my life. I was absolutely frozen in fear. My friend, however, started yelling at the man in Spanish and he seemed to get angry because of that. There was a busy road to the left of us and it was our only way out. We knew what we had to do without even saying it. We didn't look left or right. We just ran for our lives across traffic. A car almost ended up hitting us, but they slammed on the brakes and started honking like crazy. We just kept running until we were about a block from our houses. We were out of breath and hysterical. We thought that we had made it, but when we heard a whistle, and we look, and there's the truck. The men were on the other side of the street, with windows down, whistling at us. We had no option but to run as fast as we could to our house. My mom was in the front gardening, and she was shocked to see us running, screaming, and panting. We couldn't get the words out right away. All we managed to say was, "Truck following us." She immediately ran to the street to see the truck peeling away. As soon as she calmed us down, she called the cops to take a report, but unfortunately nothing ever came of it, and I was never allowed to walk to school again. This happened in South Carolina. I saw the last post about this happening to another woman, so it seemed like a good time to tell someone. This was one of the worst experiences of my life, and I hadn't thought about it for a long time. Someone said I should write a book on all the horrible things that have happened to me in my life because it should be more than a person can handle. But anyways, I was dating a guy for a couple of weeks, and we went to one of my friend's homes in the middle of nowhere. It was a rundown, older, mobile home, but who am I to judge? We went in and there were 4 other guys. I thought it was odd that I was the only girl, but just shrugged it off. They wanted to play a drinking game, and back then I was a little wild, so I was game. After about an hour, things got a little weird. I could see them looking at each other like there was an inside joke. I decided to get up to go to the bathroom, and when I came out, someone pushed me in the bedroom and locked the door. It was completely dark, I banged on the door telling them that this wasn't funny. The door opened, and they all came in and shut the door behind them. I could feel them grabbing at me and laughing. I was fighting and hitting, but they were too strong. The door opened and they all left. I could hear them outside in the hall, and I'll be honest, it didn't sound good. They were discussing the order in which they would take turns with me. The door opens and my mind is going a mile a minute on how I'm going to survive this. The guy comes in and sat on the bed and said that he was going to get me out of there. He said that they went too far, and he didn't know that they were going to hurt me. He said that he thought it was just a joke at first. There was a back door across the bedroom, and he said for me to run through the woods as fast as I could to the road, and he would come and find me. And I did. I ran as fast as I could and heard them yelling for me to come back. I could hear them coming. I got to the road and hid behind a tree, and it seemed like an hour, and I see a car pull up with him in it, and he's all bloodied up. They beat him up for letting me go. He had my purse and ended up taking me home. I didn't know if I should trust him, but I had no other choice. I was in the middle of the woods. I heard a couple of months later that he was arrested for killing his girlfriend, and the guy who took me there was arrested for assault of another woman. Maybe if I had went to the police, this might not have happened, but it was the most terrifying night of my life. Some quick context before I start explaining what happened to me. I live in the middle of nowhere, and what I mean by in the middle of nowhere is that my town is 3 hours away from the capital city of Alberta, Edmonton, Canada. My town is very small, and the police are usually called during the day, so there's hardly ever someone on duty during the night. I'm a 16-year-old girl who's a big video game addict, so I never leave my house other than for school or for work. My father and mother are divorced, and my father works for the military. My mom, however, works from home, and my stepdad works in the oil field, so he wasn't home at the time. My parents both live in separate houses, and due to the past between me and the father, I permanently live with my mom and visit my father twice a month. On to the actual situation, though, now. Everything started in October 2021. On a Wednesday afternoon, every 2 weeks, I get an early dismissal from school and get to leave at 1:30 p.m. instead of 3:10 p.m. My bus never did come to pick me up or my sibling up on time, so our mom came to pick us up instead. She drove us home, and as we were going home, our neighborhood had police officers all around with police dogs, and police officers were stopping every car in the neighborhood to see who was in them, and they were looking for somebody. They gave us no context of who they were looking for, and because we had multiple issues with missing children, we didn't really care. We did what they asked of us, and we went on our way. Me being me, as soon as I got home, I went to my room and started playing video games and chose to worry about my homework later. Around 6 o'clock, my mom came in my room telling me dinner was ready, so I came out of my room and grabbed my food and brought it to my computer room and chose to start my homework. I transitioned my bedroom to the computer room, and about 20 minutes later, my mom barges in the room screaming my name. In a panic, I barge out of the computer room yelling, "What's going on?" and ran towards her. Instinctively, she told me to cover up my windows and to make sure every door was locked. As I was doing that, my brother heard the commotion and asked my mom what was going on. Turns out, my mom had been messaged by one of our neighbors that there was video of police in front of our neighbor's duplex, and they were trying to break down the door because a man was shooting around his house, and he was trying to push the police away, and we lived right beside the duplex. Turns out, the police officers left after being shot at, even though the guy was considered missing since he had kept his family hostage and hadn't appeared to work within the past week. After a few hours of the police MIA, missing in action, it was about 9 o'clock when my dad called me frantically asking what was happening since my mom thought the situation had calmed down and chose to text my father about the situation. I told him I had absolutely no clue what was happening since the screaming, shooting, and any other loud noises had now all stopped. My dad being him, he put on his military clothing and went down to the police station and told them to get back there and stop that situation. But it turns out, the police called the Edmonton SWAT team, and they were called out towards my town, and hence why they were MIA and silent, because they were trying to be stealthy in their operations. That situation had been dragged out all night, and the SWAT team had brought in drones. Because we had police officers around our house, we were told to stay inside, and we chose to head to bed. I had woken up at 2 a.m. to more screaming and shooting. In the morning, my mom had received up to 10 videos from our neighbors, and the Edmonton SWAT team had gassed the entire duplex, broke into the house, and managed to get everyone out safe and sound. And as for the guy, he was caught with an illegal weapon and put on trial. We don't know what happened since the trial, and we never thought about checking. My stepfather came home from his job early and actually quit so that he could be around to keep us safe, or try to if anything struck up again. My dad and I started talking a lot more, and he stayed in close contact with us since. We've had plenty of kidnappings in my area recently, and he's kept us up to date on it. We think it might have had something to do with the guy's friends or the dealers in the area or whatever, since apparently he had been doing many illegal things. But I am happy to say that nobody was hurt, and we've all moved on from this incident. About 8 years ago, I stayed downtown. Back then, if you remember Craigslist, it had a personal section. I never really dabbled in that, but being curious, I often look at it. So I made an ad, nothing spectacular, and I just sort of waited. Not much went down, just some scammers and bots, married people, etc. I get this one message from a young woman telling me how I sound interesting and would love to get to know me more. We exchanged pictures. She exchanged an older picture, but she looked pretty cute. They had a bright smile and big blue eyes. She was nice, I just wasn't feeling her like that. She was 18 and I was 24 at the time, but also she was apparently 7 months pregnant. We enjoyed the conversations for a few days and decided to link up. She didn't stay far from me. She stayed more on the northeast side, just on the edge of downtown. This day it was a festival going on. I asked if she wanted to go, but she couldn't because her legs were pretty tired and kind of sore, so I agreed to meet her at her own place. She stayed in a northern slum, not a ghetto, but an actual slum. The house was big, but also you could tell off the bat that it was used as an apartment. It wasn't an appealing house, but there weren't many other appealing ones around there either. When I told her that I was outside, I see her come on the front porch. She was a small little thing, only about 5 feet tall. And she had dark hair. She couldn't have been more than 90 to 110 pounds, and that was only because of the pregnancy. Her baby bump was very noticeable. She had a small chocolate Labrador puppy with her too. They both were happy to see me. When I got close to her, I was surprised. She didn't have the same bright smile I saw in her pictures. Her teeth were gray and her face looked like someone who was very much into heavy drugs. Her eyes still had the light to them, but overall, she looked like a tired human being, and not in the fatigued sense. I gave her a hug, made sure to watch my strength, and we went into the place. There wasn't nothing sketchy about it. It did stink, just like animals and weed. We went upstairs, and I saw a couple up there. They shut their door, and it seemed like they were arguing. All the rooms upstairs seemed small, and the ceilings were slanted. Her room was fitted pretty nice. She was a smoker, and I smelled the ashtray stench. We decided to watch the movie Pineapple Express, and that was the first time seeing that movie. She complained about her legs a lot. I'd seen some little swelling on them, so I gave her legs a rub. I used her body lotion. She loved it a lot and appreciated it big time. We talked, and it was getting late, and I wanted to head to downtown to catch the heat of the festivities. She looked like she enjoyed my company a lot, and as we were waving goodbye, for some reason I just said to myself, "Man, that chick seems like trouble." I thought of burning sage when I got home, to be honest. Like 2 days later, she hit me up saying her ex-boyfriend got kicked out of his place and he needed somewhere to stay. So me and her hanging out couldn't happen again, which I didn't care. I just told her I understood and make sure she stays safe. I left to Chicago and spent some time with my family. I came back a week later, and after getting my hair retwisted, I saw a realty sign with her last name on it when I was out for a walk. She had a unique last name. I decided to check on her. I sent her an email, and there was no response. About 5 minutes later, I opened up Facebook, and as I scrolled, I stopped immediately because I saw the very picture she first sent me. I'm like, why is that pic on here? I clicked a link saying that there had been a triple homicide. I sat on the curb and was in complete shock. I couldn't believe it. I read the details and was shocked further. She met a guy on Craigslist to hook up with him. Her ex met up with him too, supposedly. He killed the ex-boyfriend and decapitated him, left his body at a park I was familiar with. He took her and held her captive in his basement. He tortured her for a week. And what made me so angry is that he went to a sports bar down the street from me and told the bartenders how he has someone locked up in his basement right now. Nobody took it serious to call the police, and that probably could have saved her. He strangled her and stuffed her in a suitcase. By then, the police figured him out and he was on the run. When they stopped his car, he decided to just take himself out. They found him probably because of the emails from Craigslist. I know they investigated my email, and I deleted it immediately once I took all this in. About a month later, I was on Craigslist and I saw in the miscellaneous section about meeting scammers and such. I posted a reply about people being careful and I posted her story. Also around then, I had a guy I went to high school with who was caught robbing people for money on there. When I summarized her story, I got a reply. It was from a lady demanding to know what I know, and I come to find out that it was her aunt. When I told her, she wanted to talk on the phone, so I did. I gave her my condolences and told her about the time that we spent together. She told me her ex was pimping her out, and her life was never like that. Her parents were good people and confused that she took that path in life. That girl was just a baby. I've been around death before, but nothing like that, because what if I kept hanging out with her? The craziest parts are, the guy had another woman in his place, but she escaped. She was living with him, and he had made her a slave. But also, he was supposed to fly to Vegas to meet a lady from some sort of weird site. But there were complications on his end. The day he committed the murder, he contacted the lady and told her that he wanted to meet her ASAP. He was paying for the travel and everything, but she needed his info. She didn't go through with it, but she looked him up and happened to see his connection with the triple homicide. What's even more dark is that they didn't find her ex's boyfriend's head at the park, just his body. They found his head north of the city in 2019, like 25 miles away from his dead body. Why did he take that head? What did he do with it to travel with it like that? The awkward thing is there was a lady who lived with me a year later after that. Things were complicated and I had to kick her out. She moved into the exact room that chick was in. I know because I had to come over there to give her something that she left. This is also the girl that played a major part in my sister and her ex-boyfriend breaking up for good. People do come into your life for a reason, I suppose. I used Craigslist for business and some other social events, but after that my approach became entirely different, and I became very cautious on who I met. This story happened when I was 15 and totally reckless. I was with my best friend Alice and her neighbor Emily. We decided to try to enter clubs with fake IDs after discreetly going out of the house by the window. After getting rejected by the security guards at the clubs because obviously we were not looking like 18-plus-year-old girls, we were wandering the streets not knowing what to do. It was around 1 a.m. The subway was closed and we didn't have enough money to get a cab. Plus, we really wanted to party, and Alice wanted to find a new guy because she was heartbroken from her past boyfriend. The last club we tried to enter into was in one of those areas that had a famously bad reputation in the city. It was in Lyon, France. Then suddenly, a car stopped next to us. The door opens and there's 3 guys inside. Two of them turn their heads and tell us, "Hey, pretty girls, come with us. We got everything you need to get some pleasure. We got drinks, and we can smoke too." The one at the back looked really muscular and really insistent. Alice then said, "Let's go, girls, it could be super fun." Then she whispered, "Please, I need some fun. I need a guy to turn the page." She grabbed Emily's arm and went into the car laughing. At this point, I was like, what am I doing? I would rather die with my friends than die alone in the streets, so we all entered. In the car, they're trying to flirt with us, but I'm petrified. We say that we're 17 and they tell us that it's the perfect age to party with them. After 15 minutes of them driving, I don't know where around the city, they say that they want to get some drinks and they want to find a cool place. Alice is super happy. Emily and I are relieved that they're gonna drop us off in a public place like a bar or club, but they park the car in a car park in the middle of nowhere. We get out of the car and the guy takes some bottles from the trunk, mixes a lot of stuff inside the glasses, and then gives them to us. The one who was driving stays in the car, hands on the wheel, and he's not saying anything. The other two guys start to tell us really inappropriate things, that they're going to take us to a hotel, that we're all going to look like stars. Obviously, for them, I look like Katsuni because I'm Asian. They were around 35 and we were all 15. They insist on saying and on how they would be the best hit of our lives, how they would be in bed. Emily whispers to me that we shouldn't drink, but act as if though we're drinking because there might be something inside. Alice starts flirting back and telling me that it's kind of dangerous, but apparently she liked it. At this point, they tell us that they're never going to let us go unless we stay with them the entire night. I feel trapped and they ask me to drink, insistently. I finally do it, and I start to feel dizzy really fast. Everything is blurring around me. I think in a very incoherent way and my stomach starts to hurt. The guys are looking at me as if though I was prey and they were on the hunt. After 10 or 15 minutes of feeling like this, I tell Alice that we need to go, and she doesn't look worried at all. I then think that I should just sit inside the car, waiting for my fate to just play out. I open the front door and there's still the guy who drove inside. He's listening to the radio and doesn't even look at me when I enter. I ask him, "Why aren't you with your friends?" He turns and looks at me, upset, and says, "Hey, I don't know who you are and I don't want to know. You told us you were 17, but you look like my younger sister and she just entered high school. I don't know why my stupid friends are stupidly flirting with you, but I'm just waiting for them to stop and drop the three of you off in a public place. Once it'll be done, I hope I'll never have to see any of you again in my entire life." I was shocked, but also kind of relieved. We stayed there, both of us, just listening to the radio and hearing the laughs of Alice and all the terribly inappropriate jokes from the muscular guy. I was so dizzy that I was starting to feel like I was melting into the seat. After maybe 30 minutes, the driver guy said that he wanted to go somewhere, so everyone got into the car. We sat in the car and went for another 10-minute ride, while the two guys were saying what they were going to do to us once we got to the hotel. Then the driver told them to shut up and that he was dropping us off at this big place with lots of people. We gave the two guys some fake names for Facebook and some fake phone numbers, and we finally got out of the car. The muscular guy who was at the back tried to grab Emily's arm, but she managed to run outside. They left. The driver guy looked at me just before and just gave me a friendly nod. I was still super dizzy and eventually threw everything up. Emily didn't believe what just happened, and Alice was still laughing, saying that it was insane and that she was excited. It was like 3:30 or 4 a.m. by this point, and we finally found a real party after. But to these two guys that wanted to do I don't know what in a hotel, let's not meet again. Or, like the driving guy said, I hope I'll never have to see you guys again in my entire life. Several years ago, I, a female, lived in a pretty nice 2-bedroom apartment that was above the veterinary clinic I managed. There were 3 apartments above the clinic, and mine was in the middle. It had a 3rd bedroom, but that was technically my office, and it connected to the clinic via a crazy little spiral staircase. I could also go out my heavy steel front door, turn right, and go down a set of stairs around the back of the building to the back door of the clinic. The clinic itself was set back from the main road in a small neighborhood, but the main road was the main road for the interstate to the university campus, so it was heavily traveled. We were also within walking distance of the proudly converted rails-to-trails system in our state. The location gave a sense of quiet and security that really wasn't there, long story short. So I lived alone, but I knew the neighbors well and wasn't concerned about security because my boss was a type A personality and everything was alarmed, motion sensors, motion lights, steel doors, the works. I also had, and still have, my 60-pound Australian Shepherd, who lives to serve. He takes it upon himself to patrol the house at night, going from my bedroom to the front door to the front windows and back. I can tell him, watch the house or watch the car, and leave him alone. He will literally just stand guard the whole time. And he doesn't bark at just anything. There are different levels of, hey, that's a cat, and it's not my cat, go away, or don't even think about peeing in my yard, strange dog. Then there's what he did this night, which gave me goosebumps and got him many, many treats. I was up late. Like so many writers here, I'm a night owl, or permanently exhausted pigeon, as the meme says. I have ADHD, so my circadian rhythm is way off normal. My pup and I were chilling on the couch at around 2 a.m., YouTube filling the void in the background. I was on my laptop, mindlessly scrolling, probably Reddit or something. Suddenly my pup hops off the couch and pads to the big front window. The window spans from about 4 feet wide across the living room. It wasn't down the floor. My dog needed to hop up on his chair to comfortably look outside. On this summer night, the breeze was wonderful, so I had the windows open. I looked up from the mindless scrolling to see my dog on high alert in his chair, muzzle pointed at the road and ears up. Then I heard the woman. "Help me," came from the direction of the rear of the clinic. Like I said, there's a set of stairs there that goes to the back door. Very secluded area that backs up to another apartment building. The voice is weak and I'm worried that someone fell back there and needs help. My brain is suddenly going through all the scenarios. I grab my phone and some shoes and plan on going through the clinic instead of outside so I can look out the back peephole in case this isn't legitimate. As I'm getting my shoes on, my dog lets out this hair-raising, low rumbling growl. Very quiet, very terrifying. I didn't know he was capable of such a noise. So I stop what I'm doing and look up. Through the window, I see a frizzy-haired older woman just standing in front of my porch. Again, she says, "Help me." A little bit stronger this time. My dog growled again, louder this time. I was about to call him down and address the woman, but she suddenly whipped around and yelled, "You shut up," at him. Then back to the weak, "Help me," cry. She must have realized that a dog at an open window meant someone was home, so she lingered in front of my apartment, staring at the front window. I immediately dialed the local police and went to my back bedroom to talk to them so she wouldn't hear me. Not that I thought that she could get inside, but I didn't want her to try. They were there in moments and found the lady at the front door of the clinic trying to get in. They told me later she was hurt physically, but possibly mentally ill. We have a fairly large population of homeless and transients throughout the area due to the lack of care facilities. After they removed her, I went and double-checked everything outside, dog in tow, of course. Nothing was amiss, thankfully, and he got many treats when he got back inside. I'm not sure I slept that night, but I for sure didn't leave the window open overnight anymore. I make 2 trips to school in the morning, dropping off my kids, then I come back for more neighborhood kids. This morning, my son wanted to wait and go with the neighborhood kids, so he was left behind while I ran my daughter. Daughter and I drove out of our driveway. It was still dark, and we're talking torrential rain was coming down. I almost didn't see this man in the street until I was right up on him. Middle of the street, yelling, making wild gestures, and just looking angry. He actually looked very clean cut though, healthy, even good looking to be honest. But he gave me an instant bad vibe, especially just one block from where my son was now home alone. He looked me straight in the eyes and screamed gibberish like he was enraged. I hurried to drop off my daughter, then went back for my son and the neighbor kids. I told them about the guy, but all was well and there was no sign of the stranger by then. Now fast forward to this evening, I had forgotten all about it. The daughter and I went to the library. My son opted to stay home. After the library, we were sitting in the drive-thru and my son texted me to tell me that there's a man running around the neighbor's yard across the street, screaming his head off, acting just crazy. Then someone pulled up and started filming the guy. I told him that I was on the way. If he comes near the house, call 911. I was home within minutes and apparently the guy was gone, but there were 5 police cars on my block looking for someone. Obviously, a neighbor must have called. My son and I compared descriptions of the man that we saw, and it's got to be the same guy. It's driving me crazy not knowing what's going on, or if he's still out there, or if we're safe. Before I met my coworker, he held some sort of managerial position at a store that sold shoes. For over a year, he received phone calls from a man who claimed to be inquiring about women's shoes. Due to this, he was only interested in speaking to female members of staff. Whenever he was able to speak to a female member of staff, he would ask her about the shoes she wore and how comfortable they felt. According to my coworker, these calls would take place almost daily. The caller seemed pleased to hear about shoes that were not sold in the store he was allegedly calling to inquire about. Thinking this was strange, my coworker warned another shoe store in the area about the caller. The manager of that store claimed that they had been receiving similar calls. The caller never seemed to actually be interested in buying any shoes. My coworker blocked his number on 2 separate occasions, but they would simply change phone numbers. After having his number blocked for a 3rd time, he began actually entering the store and making women uncomfortable, I guess you could say. My coworker banned him from entering the store and accused him of involving unwilling participants in his weird fantasies. The man calmly denied making the phone calls. He also claimed that his interest in shoes was not weird like that he was genuinely interested. He left the store, but ended up returning about a month later. My coworker started shouting at the man, but he allegedly remained eerily calm. The store closed down less than a year later. According to my coworker, a strange car began pulling up outside his apartment complex and remaining there for hours. He mentioned this to me a few months ago, but I wasn't sure what to make of it. I have experienced stalking, but it's hard to link the mysterious car to the man from the store. Recently, however, I noticed that a strange man always seemed to follow us around during our lunch breaks. He wouldn't say anything. He would only stare at us. After I pointed out his presence, my coworker informed me that he recognized this individual as the shoe-obsessed man who began calling the store years prior. By now, it had been 2 years since my coworker left the shoe store, but I have only known him for a few months. Earlier today, I received a friend request on Facebook from a name I didn't recognize. I recognized the profile picture as the man who had been following us. I rarely use Facebook and have never been Facebook friends with the coworker that the man initially started targeting. That coworker claimed to have deleted his Facebook account upon being made aware that the man was following him again. He suspects that the man had used Facebook to track him down at his new job, but also claims to be certain that his address wouldn't have been on Facebook. He still remains certain that the car that waits outside his house is the shoe-obsessed stalker, and I believe him. When I was a teenager, there was one night that I had been hanging out with some friends and didn't have a way home but wasn't allowed to stay. So I ended up just walking around the center of town. I was walking by this alley in between a church and some other building. It was just a kind of grungy place to smoke and kill some time. The interesting part was that the word paradox was spray painted on the brick foundation of the church. So I sat down and started talking to myself, just kind of thinking out loud to stay entertained and awake. It's important that I express that I was talking out loud to myself, not like an imaginary friend or anything like that. And when I got up, I started walking again before I heard the single woo-wee and a police car pulled up next to me. I knew the cop because he was an assistant coach at my school. He asked me why I was out so late, and I told him. Then he asked me where my friend went. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said that he saw me talking to another kid in the alleyway before he pulled up. So I said I was just talking to myself, and he goes, no, I saw another kid sitting across from you. I was watching the whole time. He was serious. It was like he thought I actually had a friend with me and they ran away when they saw a cop car. He ended up driving me back to my house. And looking back, I've thought maybe he was just messing with me or that his eyes were mistaken by a shadow or something, but at the time, it creeped me out. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, r/Let'sReadOfficial, and maybe even hear your story featured on the next video. And if you want to support me even more, grab early access to all future narrations and bonus content over on Patreon, or click that big join button to hear about the extra perks offered for the channel. And check out the Let's Read podcast where you can hear all of these stories in big compilations and save huge on data, located anywhere you listen to podcasts. Links in the description below. Thanks so much, friends. And remember, I use Craigslist for business.